ريا الله أكبر يا ريا القصف بالبراميل متفجرة على المدينة الله أكبر.
I had a meeting this morning with President Abbas and can tell you that the Palestinians are ready to reach for peace. I know you've heard it before. I am telling you, that's what I do. They are ready to reach for peace. And my meeting with my very good friend, Benjamin, I can tell you also that he is reaching for peace. He wants peace.
Victory, victory, they shout. These sub-Saharan Africans have just reached Spanish and European soil, achieving their dream. 600 of them made a coordinated assault at dawn this day, scaling and even cutting through the fences at the Spanish enclave of Ceuta on Morocco's north coast, breaching one of Europe's external borders. The tall twin fences, topped with razor wire, stretch for 8 kilometers or 5 miles around Ceuta, a deterrent meant to keep the African migrants out. The assault here so recent, the men haven't even been checked into the migrant center. The wounds still fresh, bleeding from their foreheads and their arms from going up and over the razor wire. But the cuts and the blood seem to be their badge of honor for getting a foothold in Europe. Medical personnel quickly arrived and attended to the 130 injured migrants. Spain's new socialist government has vowed to do everything possible to remove the controversial razor wire. And the assault hasn't changed that position, says this senior Spanish official who rushed to the migrant holding center.
Eliminating the razor wire, yes, but only after other security measures are in place to stop these kinds of avalanches.
On the road, the migrants discarded protective clothing they wore against the razor wire, heavy pullovers, sturdy footwear, and gloves. The migrants used new tactics this time, officials said.
Explosions rocked the streets of Gaza City overnight as Israeli airstrikes intensified. The Israeli military says it's launched some 220 attacks against targets belonging to the militant groups Hamas and Islamic Jihad, releasing these pictures of a strike on an alleged rocket manufacturing facility. But other buildings, properties and roads have also been destroyed, and a number of Palestinians have been killed, including a mother and her 14-month-old niece. The children of one resident, Ala Abwa Absa, are sleeping now, but she said there was a lot of bombing. People were afraid and terrified and running, and everyone was looking for their children. After the first rocket hit, everyone started screaming, children and adults. Israel says its airstrikes are in retaliation for hundreds of rockets fired by Palestinian militants into Israel. Its Iron Dome defence system has intercepted around 150 of the more than 450 rockets fired at it in the past 24 hours. In Ashkelon, 6 miles north of Gaza, mourners gathered for the funeral of 58-year-old Moshe Agadi, the first Israeli to die from rocket fire since 2014. Newly re-elected Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Hamas are paying a heavy price for its rocket attacks against Israel, and confirmed this morning he'd instructed the Israeli Defense Force to continue the intense attacks against terror targets in the Gaza Strip and reinforce the troops surrounding it.
Thank you. When I came into office, I promised to look at the world's challenges with open eyes and very fresh thinking. We cannot solve our problems by making the same failed assumptions.
This Hamas video shows one of its guided missiles blowing up a bus inside Israel on Monday. An Israeli soldier was wounded. Several homes were hit. Palestinians in Gaza awoke on Tuesday to the destruction wrought by Israeli airstrikes. A Hamas intelligence compound and the Al-Aqsa television studios were hit. A UN Middle East envoy called the escalation extremely dangerous. Palestinians say this crater marks the spot where an Israeli Special Forces member was rescued on Sunday. It led to a firefight. A Hamas commander was killed, as well as 6 other Palestinians, and an Israeli lieutenant colonel, identified only as M. Undercover operations like this going public are extremely rare. Violence has simmered this year since Palestinians launched weekly protests in March to demand the easing of a blockade on impoverished Gaza and rights to land they lost when Israel was created. Israeli troops have killed more than 220 Palestinians in those confrontations. The United States condemned Hamas for the latest outbreak, which has derailed efforts by the UN, Egypt and Qatar to broker a long-term truce.